This is the Sawyer 10702, and this is the Triumph 1978 Spitfire 1500cc engine, and this is installing the thrust washers. And as you can see, I haven't put no oil on these yet, but I'm just going to put them in. And if you notice that there's two sides, there's this side, and these are standard. So this copper side will go sitting like this inside here, like so, and this one will go on this side like that. So that's two thrust washers, one on the front, one on the rear. And there's another way you can do this if you wanted to, because on the 1500 engine you get a lot of pressure from the clutch, you know, pushing in and out on the pressure plate, so it pushes the crank up against this thrust washer. And another thing you can do is you could take this journal, you could machine it, and you could, if you have a Lexum, you know, that one that's going to hold this, machine it properly, and you could drill this and tap this, so you'd have 4 thrust washers on this, so, you know, give you more surface space for when that clutch is pushed in all the time, you know, sitting at stop signs, traffic lights, whatever. So that would stop them from wearing out more. You could do that. I think a lot of people have, and I've seen a forum on it where you can drill and tap this, but it has to be perfect. So anyway, but we're just gonna put 2 thrust washers in. So there's the thrust washer. Now the crankshaft is in, and now you can see the 2 thrust washers, and then you can hit the crank over. You can move the crank a little bit, not very much, if you heard that. So what you could do is, now the Haynes manual says that it can be 8 to 16 thousandths. I mean 6 to 14 thousandths on this. So, and I've got a feeler gauge, and these are dry. So, and I measured mine, and mine I can barely get a 6 in there, 6 thousandths, and then I tried an 8 thousandths, it won't go in there at all. So, and that's hitting the crank all the way over, backwards and forwards on both of them. So that's the proper way to install the thrust washers, and then putting the end caps on. So putting your main bearing caps on, if you see this bit of tobacco on that, sorry, if you see this slot here, and then you see the slot down there, with this slot and that slot aligned together, and then this has got a number 2 on this, and that corresponds to number 2 up here. You see that on the block. So this is number 2, So put that one in. Now I know a lot of people use assembly lube, but I like to use this because it's got the SDTP, zinc, anti-wear agent. What I do is I mix three of that to 1 part 30 weight or 40 weight oil, which works good. That's what I assembled the Jag engine with, and it seemed to work fine. That's what I use for assembly lube. And then also got my old oil can, made in India, not made in China. And then I like to lube these up really good. Put some more on there. Put some on for the thrust washers. Right, it's lubed up quite nicely. Then same again, your little mark goes down there on your other mark. Put that in. And then these, I like to just tighten them down, £20 at first, and then specs are £40 each, so I go to 20, then I go to 40. So anyway, that's the crank journals in. I put that one in wrong. I had it on this side. But anyway, the one with the big ump goes at the back of the motor. So you can't put these in wrong. I mean, this is number 2. I mean, that's the front one and that's the rear one. This one's a bit thicker, if you notice, because that holds the thrust washers in place. So and then what I do is, like, this thing turns really easy. I mean, I'm doing this by hand. So that's good and tight. Nice. That's the way it was when I took it off. So this engine's been rebuilt. The bearings and the rod bearings are 10 over. So, and someone done some work to this, because they obviously, looks like they did some balancing on here, cut out big chunks on the crankshaft. But that's that. So that's all good. And then the question I got is on the connecting rods. I've been reading up and people have been saying not to reuse the conrod bolts, so I don't know if that's true or not, because they stretch out, but you know, I mean, how could it stretch out? I mean, it's pretty you know, British engineering. I don't see how the bolts will stretch out. I mean, they're bloody hard. So anyway, that's the question. So if I should replace the conrod bolts, doesn't say about the crank bolts. It says those are fine. But I've seen on a couple of places to replace the conrod bolts. So I've got them ready to go. Next I'm going to install the piston rings. Now here's the pistons, all cleaned up. Got a set of piston rings, Grant, $29, which is about £19. Piston rings, good ones. Use these on the Jag. Right, as you can see, a little red and blue button to expand the gap, and then you got this top ring right here to your left, and then bottom ring right here to your right, and then bottom ring, this one. So you've got to have these gaps different size of each other, because if you put them together it's going to be no good. You're going to get oil leaking through, burning. That's how the rings are supposed to go. All nice and loose there. Oil rings. So that's supposed to be just like that. So right, get all the piston rings on. Next to com rods. Got some new C-clips. Put those in. Right, so next, con rods. Right, and like I said, make sure you got your rings on. Got your two colours right in the middle, and then your bottom oil ring should be from the middle, from your gudgeon pin, 1 inch to the left, and then the other one 1 to 2 inches to the right, and then of course your top ring, second ring, the gaps. So make sure just none of the gaps are together. The other thing too on the piston rings is when you put the piston rings in, there's there's writing on the top of the rings that says top, so that once you have to face that to the top of the piston, of course. So anyway, now to show you how to put the piston in. Right, this is how I like to do it. So you got to take the cap off first, because I keep. Right, a good way to do this is put the piston like that, and then you take your compression tool and make sure it's even all the way around, you know, because sometimes they like to slide up and twist. So make sure it's nice and even, and then if you put this on like that and then you can tighten this up and hold that, then it stops everything from spinning around and then turning your rings, you know, so they're out of where you placed them. So it's just easier to do it this way. That way you've got something to hold it and to tighten them up at the same time. Right, make sure you got it good and tight. I mean, to get it tight, it's a lot better than put it in, align it in. There's a arrow on there that says front of engine, which is the front. So when you put the com rods in, you can put them in, and also the com rods are numbered 1, 2, 3 and 4. And then what you do is you hold this down tight, and then bash the other end, bash the piston in slowly with the end of a hammer or a rubber mallet, piece of wood, whatever you want to use. But hold this down firmly as you're doing it, and just give it nice little taps. One thing is that if you're tapping on it and it gets stuck, do not force it. Take it back out again and tighten this thing up and redo it. Make sure your rings are lined up. But that's the best way I've found. Is you take your time, do it right, oil it well, and you're good to go. Right, so if you tap that down, and then here's one half of the con rods, and if you notice your little spline for your bearing and the little gap for the bearing there, you notice those two go together like that on the same side. And if you notice, see that says number 1, and on here that says number 1. Same with this. Right. That says number 4, and then number 4 stamped on that side as well. So like I said, those go together. Should go on nice and easy. And then tighten them up to whatever the specs are. But the other thing is too is that you, every time you do something like put the main bearings in, you spin the crank, make sure it spins nice and freely, and then every time I put one of these in, I'll give it a couple of turns, make sure it works, go to the next one, give it a couple of turns, go to the next con rod, give it a couple of turns, so you know everything's free. Otherwise you could get to this one and not really turn anything, and then it's stuck, and then you've got to take everything apart again, step by step, to figure out what's going on. I mean, it's easy to make a mistake. Sometimes you could put the bearings around the wrong way, and then all of a sudden, if you don't put the bearings in the way they're supposed to go, you could turn this thing and all of a sudden the bearing starts turning around in the race. I've had that happen before. But it's a good thing to catch before you put it all together. I mean, it's so easy to make a mistake. I mean, distractions, or you could be thinking about, you know, the next thing. But it's always good to double check yourself. Check everything. Double check. Double check. It's always best to double check, especially when you're putting an engine together, because you don't want to put it in the car and have to take it all out again because you forgot something. Also the gauging clips, just make sure you got all your clips in. I mean, sometimes it's really easy, you put one in and then you're thinking about the next thing and then you forgot to put one in and that thing comes loose and smacks, and that's it, done, engine's cooked. But yeah, it's always just best just to double check everything. So anyway, next step, installing the oil pump and checking the oil pump for the specs. Right, I've done the main bearing caps 65 and torqued them 65 pounds, which I split that in half. I did 30, then I did 65, and then the con rods, I did those to 50. Those are I'll split that in half as well. And when you do the torque wrench, I mean, I don't know what kind of torque wrench, but it's always best just to go really slow as you get towards the end. That way you torque them right. Because if you notice, sometimes if you torque them too fast, and if you go back and check them and do it really slow, you get like more of a perfect torque on them. You'll notice they turn just a little bit if you do it slow. So anyway, it's just a little tip. So now to check the oil pump for tolerances. Right, checking the oil pump for tolerances. Put this on now, and it's supposed to be 0.005. So I tried this and I can't get my feeler gauge in there. That's a 5, it won't go, so that's all good. Right, next measurement. This is a 10,000ths. This is 0.010, and the book, actually this book I got tells you how to check the oil pump. Gives you oil pump specs. So the B gap is 0.010, which is 0.254 millimeters, which is 254. There we go. So put it in the gap here. See, it doesn't even fit. Doesn't fit at all. I could probably get my knob in there, but feeder gauge won't fit. Right, next measurement is get these brass ones. 153 millimeters, 0.006. You never find the feeler gauges anymore. Actually, the only ones I've come close is this. But you remember the ones that had they're more pointed on there. So anyway, just the next measurement. I can't get this in there. I mean, I could stuff it down there really hard again. So anyway, this oil pump is good. Anyway, the fingers, I got interrupted there, but anyway, the finger ones that are really pointed, they're good for doing oil pumps, and I can't find them in America anywhere. I've tried all different auto parts stores. Probably just have to order some online. So anyway, that's it for the oil pump. All good. Didn't have to spend $100 to get a new one. Right, one thing about these engines, the 1500 or 1493 cc's, when Triumph built these, their what should I say, their attention to detail wasn't very good. So I don't know if you notice. Okay, so if you line your oil pump up with your holes, and if you look down in here, I don't know if you can see that, but you see where the casting is down there? So it's got that, and then it's got that hole there, like where the oil goes through, pumps through. So you put that in there, line your holes up, right there, and if you notice, look, there's casting there. So you see it there? Look, that's where it's nice, and there's a bit there, right in there. I don't know if you can see that. So yeah, so make sure that that's cut out, or draw that piece out somehow. Make sure this thing is clean. So anyway, I'll have to file that out or drill it out a bit more. Alright, so I put the oil pump in. Don't forget to pour a load of oil down in there, prime it a little bit, get it all oiled up nicely, because don't forget when you first start the engine, don't start it up straight away. Disconnect the coil wire and prime it for a lot. I mean, just turn it over a bit before you actually start it up. Do yourself a favour. Good thing to rule by. Build up oil pressure instead of starting the engine with no oil pressure in there at all. Just do that.